What if events went differently? What if Iron Man and Captain America chose to go to Vormir in 2014 before the Avengers time traveled? How could this small change impact the outcome of the MCU timeline going forward? Find out in today's highly requested fan fiction. We have to remember going to the Soul Stone means that you need to sacrifice someone to get the Soul Stone, a soul for a soul. The team didn't know about this because the information was withheld, since Nebula did know about it before the time heist. Iron Man and Captain America knew that they needed to grab those stones in 2012, but something changes in this timeline. After they read the time heist, Tony told the team that he was willing to go with Steve to grab the Soul Stone because he thought that it would have been too risky for him and Steve to go back to 2012. Steve agreed with Tony and asked Black Widow, Hawkeye, and War Machine to go to 2012, since it was easier for Black Widow and Hawkeye. They were trained to do that type of work. Stealing the stones, they could do it blindfolded. Black Widow agreed with Tony that it was going to be easy to get the scepter from Stark Tower, and that all she needed to do was slip into the tower with Hawkeye not noticed. This small change impacts the rest of the timeline, since now that we have Ant-Man, War Machine, and Hulk going with Nebula to get the Power Stone in 2014. Hulk knew that he needed to talk with Doctor Strange, but War Machine said that he could handle it since that he could slip by faster, not being detected by anybody during the Battle of New York. The Avengers would agree to the new terms of this new alternate time heist, and the team has changed big time. Iron Man and Captain America travel to 2014, getting the Soul Stone, while Black Widow, Hawkeye, and War Machine go to 2012 to retrieve the stones during the Battle of New York. We have Ant-Man, Hulk, and Nebula traveling to get the Power Stone on Morag, while Thor and Rocket Raccoon get the Reality Stone in 2013. The heroes grabbed their white suits and were ready for the jump to get the stones. They went quantum, traveling far and fast throughout time and space. Captain America and Iron Man traveled to Morag and got into the Guardian's ship. Hulk said to Tony and Steve good luck, as they were going to need it, and they got into the ship going to Vormir. As the ship was traveling in space, Tony asked Steve how far they've come all the way up to this point to win. Steve explained that they were going to need to succeed, and that he had faith in the team to bring all the stones back so they could do the final snap and bring everybody back. Steve could see it in Tony's eyes that he was worried, and Steve looked at the portal while they were going through light speed, and they both smiled, seeing the view until the ship stopped and they could see Vormir. The planet was massive and it was mysterious. Cap didn't know what to think about it, but it just felt weird about the planet, and something just seemed off with it. Cap said to Tony, I hope we made the right choice here, and they landed the ship on the planet. It was dark, cold, and things just didn't seem right. As parts of the Avengers were traveling through space and time, War Machine, Black Widow, and Hawkeye were teleported to 2012. They could see the Chitauri, and they started looking around, getting flashbacks of old times when they fought Loki. War Machine could see the portal, and it was huge. It was something he never saw in person before, but now that he could see it, he could tell why Tony was so scared of it. War Machine asked where they were going, and Black Widow told him she was going to find Loki's scepter before it got into the hands of Hydra. She told War Machine to snap out of it, as War Machine was in shock. He agreed, nodding his head, and he left, flying to Doctor Strange's place. War Machine could see someone that fit the description of Doctor Strange, and he flew down to the rooftop asking where Strange was. He wanted to open the door, but he was pushed back by the Ancient One. She asked what he wanted and why he was there, but War Machine said Strange was around here somewhere, and the Ancient One told War Machine that he was a few years too early, and that he was performing surgery down the street a few blocks away. War Machine could see the stone around her neck, and it was the one that he was looking for. He told the lady to step aside, and he needed that stone. War Machine slowly started raising his repulsor blasts at her, and she moved fast, dodging them, kicking Rhodey out of his physical body into his astro form. Almost like the original timeline, Rhodey told the Ancient One Doctor Strange gave the time stone away, giving it to Thanos. Since Rhodey wasn't fully smart enough as the Hulk in this timeline, it was going to be an even more difficult time to get that stone from the Ancient One, but she heard this, thinking to herself, Strange wouldn't do this unless there was a reason for it, and she gifted the stone to Rhodey, telling him that these stones need to somehow be returned right after, explaining to War Machine if he could travel back, giving it to her after they defeat Thanos, the timelines wouldn't be overrun. He agreed to the terms, getting the stone as it was revealed out of her hands. War Machine flew away with it, telling Widow and Hawkeye he has the stone. War Machine teleported away back to 2023. Black Widow and Hawkeye made their way, sneaking past guards and getting through the security. She knew Stark Tower in and out, while she did work there with Tony during the events of Iron Man 2. They made it up the elevator, seeing the Hydra agents with the briefcases. Hawkeye went into the elevator and he was in the middle of the elevator, slowly going down, but he went up to a guard saying "Hail Hydra" as they were confused. They gave Clint the briefcase and he slowly was walking away when the elevator door opened. Black Widow saw Thor from afar, walking with Tony with the Tesseract. They were putting the Tesseract in the case and she slowly moved, not being seen. The Tesseract was on the table with the case and she was sneaking near the tables while she could hear talking. Tony picked up the case, getting into the elevator with Hulk, Loki, and Thor. Hawkeye told Black Widow that he had the case and he teleported back to 2023. She needed to get that stone no matter what the costs, and she ran down the stairs, having a flashbang on her. She was going to use it on the Hulk to try to distract him and grab the Tesseract. The heroes were walking out of the elevator until a fire alarm went off. Thor grabbed Loki, looking around. Stark Tower's lights were going flickering out and they started blacking out, while Black Widow threw a flashbang as people screamed and Hulk yelled, smashing through the doors. The case fell on the ground with Tony Stark, who had it, but Black Widow used a flashbang, kicking Stark in the face, saying sorry, and she picked it up, traveling back to 2023. All of the events in 2013 would happen the same, with Thor going with Rocket to grab the Reality Stone from Jane Foster. They still successfully got the stone, extracting it from Jane's body, but like the original timeline, Thor would still grab his hammer and he would talk to his mother, getting the strength to slowly come back. Rocket and Thor traveled back to 2023, successfully getting the stones. Ant-Man, Nebula, and Hulk could see Star-Lord dancing, and Hulk used a massive clap, knocking him out. He fell to the ground incapacitated, and Nebula used her metal arm to grab the Power Stone through the shields. She gave it to the Hulk as he looked at the stone, getting a flashback of him being defeated as he could see Thanos choking Loki out and Thor screaming. He snapped back to reality, hearing screaming, and it was Nebula. Her mind started glitching out as the two Nebulas, just like the original timeline, had a link. Thanos intercepted the link, seeing through her databanks, and the 2014 Nebula could see the Avengers, the stones, everything. Thanos ordered them to retrieve the body on Morag, demanding his Black Order to get it. They bowed, knowing that Thanos in the future did what he wanted to do, and they showed a video of his future self getting his face cut off, fulfilling his destiny. Hulk looked in the distance to see a massive ship enter the atmosphere. Star-Lord slowly got back up, seeing Hulk, Ant-Man, and Nebula, and he didn't know who they were or what was happening, but Star-Lord started attacking all three of them, and Hulk was caught off guard, having his suit shot at multiple times. He smashed the ground and it started cracking, throwing Star-Lord to the ground, and Star-Lord was knocked out once again. Thanos' Black Order teleported from below, and they could see Hulk, Ant-Man, and Nebula. Hulk yelled at Ant-Man to travel back and that they were going to be compromised if they didn't do this. He threw the Power Stone towards Ant-Man, but he missed it, not catching the stone in time. They were both teleported back to 2023. Thanos on his ship lost the connection between the two Nebulas, altering the timeline completely. Hulk tried getting his costume to work, but his Pym particles and his costume were damaged. The Black Order started attacking the Hulk, and Ebony Maw used his powers on the Hulk, levitating him in the air, smashing his body around. Hulk was thrown to the ground, and Ebony Maw saw the Power Stone, grabbing it. They lifted Hulk into the ship, restraining him. Tony and Steve walked to the top, seeing someone in the shadows call out Steve's parents' names as well as Stark's. They could see someone and they didn't know who it was, but they thought that they were on top of this mountain and it had to be it. Iron Man got his costume on quickly, raising his hands as the shadowy figure in the distance revealed himself. Steve knew that he heard the familiar voice before, and it was the one and only Red Skull. He threw his shield at Red Skull, but it didn't work. It deflected off of him, and he asked Skull how long he's been there for, and he just laughed at Captain America, telling him after their fight he was sent there to be punished. Red Skull explained what they seek is something that is of high reward. Tony demanded to know where the Soul Stone was, but Red Skull Skull laughed at both of them, saying a soul for a soul was the only way they could require it. Tony's face dropped in shock hearing those words. Steve yelled, saying, "Enough of your games, Skull," but Tony said to Steve he was right. He explained that Nebula told them her sister was with Thanos and she didn't come back, so he couldn't be lying. This was the only way to obtain the stone. Tony said Strange said there was only one way to win and that this might be the only way to do that. Steve said, "We don't trade lives, Tony," but there was no way around it. This needed to be done quick before it was too late. Tony said, "I'm sorry, Steve, I have to do this," and he shot Steve with a repulsor blast. Steve went flying back, rolling on his back on the ground, and he could see Tony get out of his armor, but Cap yelled, asking him to wait. Tony was about to jump off of the cliff, but Cap ran as fast as he could, and Tony jumped off of the cliff, but Steve jumped, almost doing a dolphin dive near the edge of the mountain, grabbing Tony by his shirt, and it was slowly ripping apart. Tony yelled, saying that Strange wanted this to happen, and that it was the only way, but Steve said his time isn't up, and he has a family. He smiled at Tony, throwing him up above as Tony got into his armor, landing on the ground near Red Skull. Steve saluted Tony as he dropped his shield in front of Tony and the Red Skull. He jumped into the abyss, dying. Red Skull smiled, knowing that in the end, he got what he really wanted. He could see Captain America's soul be traded, and Tony woke up in the Soul Stone, hearing old 50s music, seeing Steve and Peggy dancing in the Soul Stone. He heard voices of the past and the future, and he started crying, and he looked through the water to see Steve's shield. Tony suited up, picking it back up, and he teleported back to 2023. Back at the Sanctuary 2, the Black Order dropped off Hulk to Thanos. Hulk was hardly moving. He had metal around his neck and his arms. The Black Order bowed, giving Thanos the Power Stone, and he looked at it knowing that he was going to need to make a gauntlet soon. They threw Hulk in an anti-gravity chamber, and they wanted to know more about the future and his conquest with the Infinity Stones. Hulk told Thanos that he was never going to talk no matter what, and they kept torturing Hulk to the point of madness. Hulk revealed that anything he could say would destroy and harm the timeline, and that he couldn't do that, but since time moves differently, Hulk would stay in 2014 for weeks, being tortured. The Black Order used the Power Stone on Hulk to try and make him talk, but it wasn't working. Thanos demanded Nebula to try and go through her databanks in the future, and they would hack into the old save files before they were deleted, seeing more of the footage of the Avengers in the future. Thanos opened the anti-gravity chamber, seeing Hulk floating around, but he couldn't talk. Hulk was turning back into his old self, and Thanos said he went through time to try and fix and change things in his original timeline. He yelled at Hulk and explained that it wouldn't work and that he was going to go to Earth and destroy it completely before they could ever have the upper hand on him. Thanos opened the chamber up and let Hulk's body go. Hulk's body smashed to the ground, and Thanos grabbed out the Power Stone to finish the job, saying that he was useless to them now, but Hulk screamed, becoming stronger in the chamber. He ran, attacking Thanos in the chamber, grabbing him by his neck, and there would be a massive fight between the two. Thanos used the Power Stone, trying to overpower Hulk, but it wouldn't work. The Avengers were back, most of them were, but some were missing, Hulk and Steve. Tony had Cap's shield and he dropped it on the ground and he fell to his knees. Tony asked where Banner was, and Ant-Man said that he was attacked and Thanos' ship came in, capturing him. Tony yelled at the team, saying that they failed and that he sacrificed Steve to make this work. Natasha and a few others on the team were crying and they couldn't believe that the mission had failed. Tony asked War Machine to bring him all the stones and that he would meet him in the lab. Tony started creating the gauntlet, but it wasn't fully finished because they didn't have the Power Stone. The gauntlet wouldn't work unless they had it, and for that, they didn't have it. Back on Thanos' ship, Hulk broke out, becoming an uncontrolled monster. Thanos grabbed his double-bladed sword, trying to stab it into the Hulk, but Hulk caught the sword, snapping it in half, stabbing it in Thanos' gut. He screamed in his face, knowing that he did it. He killed Thanos. Hulk grabbed the Power Stone, murdering the rest of the Black Order, and he could see that he was in the middle of space and the ship was damaged. It would take him a lifetime for him to return back to Earth and to get the Power Stone back in his timeline. Hulk was stuck in an alternate 2014 timeline, knowing that his friends left him behind, not finding a way to bring him back. Hulk would roam around space, becoming the Maestro Hulk. Hulk wanted to have his revenge on the Avengers for leaving him behind, where he had to rot for 9 years waiting to return. Maestro would create a gateway through his suit for the past 9-year duration, using Thanos' broken down ship, fixing it, going back to Earth. Tony created the nano gauntlet, but they were missing the one stone. The Avengers could hear a loud noise coming from the sky as a massive boom entered into the atmosphere on Earth. Iron Man got into a suit yelling for Thor. They ran outside of the Avengers compound to see a massive ship enter in. Thor said it was Thanos, and a blue-purple portal opened from above, and it was none other than the Incredible Hulk. Tony told Banner that they were worried and that he was late for the party, but Thor knew this wasn't their Hulk. Hulk was wearing Thanos' armor with the Power Stone on the middle of his chest. Hulk threw a dead body of Thanos, saying that they left him behind for 9 years and now he was coming back for revenge. He explained that he was suffering for years battling aliens in space, trying to keep the timeline intact, but after having a taste of the Power Stone, he wanted them all for himself. Ant-Man, War Machine, Hawkeye, and Black Widow came outside of the compound, but Tony told them not to move. There was a standoff with Maestro and the Avengers. Tony said that once you mess something up in the timeline, there's always something that will be willing to punch back, and it seems like that's just what they did. Black Widow ran calling for Bruce, telling him not to do this, but they could bring everybody back, and Maestro said that he was going to be doing that, but now he was going to keep the power for himself. He called Thanos and Tony Stark a fool, jumping in, smashing the ground. Thor and Tony became off balance from the attack as the ground was shook, cracking and breaking. They could see the look in Hulk's eyes though. He definitely wasn't normal. He had too much power, and the taste of it only led to him wanting more. The timeline is forever changed, where Hulk switches roles with Thanos, but since Hulk doesn't have an army, he is somewhat easily to defeat. During the battle, Maestro grabbed Thor by the leg, throwing him into Iron Man. He used the Power Stone on Iron Man, throwing him to the ground, and Ant-Man turned huge, defending the Avengers compound. But Maestro jumped on his arm, running on it, and he used the stone, smashing it into Ant-Man's face, and he fell into the compound, turning back into a regular-sized man. But the roof would still be destroyed, and Black Widow and War Machine tried to stop Maestro, but Hulk picked up War Machine, crushing him, smashing him to the ground. Rocket was still inside the building, and he quickly ran, getting the gauntlet from the laboratory, but he was trapped. Maestro smashed his way through everything and making it look easy. Rocket slipped away, getting out of the compound, running near the front entrance, and Iron Man slowly got up, seeing that he had the gauntlet. He asked Rocket to give it to him, and he grabbed the gauntlet, putting it on his arm. He was being destroyed slowly from all of the power, and Maestro destroyed the compound, and he saw everyone that he loved defeated. Iron Man used the power of the stones, but it wasn't enough. Massive beam came out of the glove, ripping Tony's arm off, and Maestro was walking closer and closer to Tony, and Tony couldn't wield the glove anymore. Maestro took Iron Man by the neck, throwing him aside. He picked up the glove, seeing that he was going to become all-powerful. Maestro removed the Power Stone from his chest into the gauntlet, and he was about to snap his fingers and save everybody, but Thor got back up, using his axe into Hulk's head. Green blood started spilling from his head, and Thor yelled, saying that he was sorry as tears streamed down his eyes, but Maestro said you should have gone for the arm. Maestro snapped, bringing everybody back, and he used the rest of the gauntlet's powers on Thor. Thor was on the ground, seeing Maestro pointing the gauntlet at his face. Tony yelled, saying that Steve wouldn't have wanted this and that he could still come back and drop the gauntlet on the ground. Maestro smiled at Tony, saying the future would be imperfect for them, and he used the gauntlet on Thor, creating a massive shockwave throughout the city. That is going to be my what if on what if Iron Man and Captain America went to get the Soul Stone instead of Hawkeye and Black Widow. I do hope you enjoy this fan fiction, and for me to do this, I was just really happy making Hulk evil, because switching out 2023 Nebula and Hulk would change everything, because Hulk and Banner would need to work together to create time travel. So since he was stuck in 2014 for almost a decade, it would make sense for him to use the Power Stone, only to become obsessed with the power, almost like a drug, and eventually the timeline would become more of like a future imperfect one, with Hulk becoming a godlike creature with the Infinity Gauntlet. If you guys did enjoy this video, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with latest content. And if you guys want to see more what ifs, do make sure to request them in the comments down below. But anyways, as always, thanks for tuning in and have an amazing day.